So I try to make guests feel special here, right? And we've changed backgrounds and all that sort of stuff. But today I dressed for Corey, which is a big thing. He knows. I mean, I'm always comfortable. I'm always chill. There's days I look homeless. There's days I can dress up. But so for my guest today, I have his favorite color on. I still have a hat. I mean, that's just always been my thing. But the hat matches my shirt. So I'm not going to give away any more secrets to him as to what I'm wearing and that sort of thing. He'll know because it's his favorite color. But for all you out there, that's why I'm dressed as I am. And and here to welcome my next guest. I have known this person for the shortest amount of time from most of the guests that I have on the podcast. However, we quickly, in my opinion, became close, not only coworkers, but friends. He is a very wonderful human being, very warm and welcoming, very patient, especially with me, with some of the things that we'll get into, I'm sure, with working together. But please welcome Mr. Corey Sams to the show.
Yay!
Yes, Mr. Corey. How have you been?
Oh, wow. I have been great. First, thank you for wearing my favorite color. I'm so excited to see it. I'm going to, rush to watch it now so that way I can see what you're wearing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that. But yeah, everything's been cool, just out here in the world trying to navigate it the best I can, with job hunting and all that good stuff. So
all the things for those of you that which I'm sure is a lot that don't know Mr. Corey Sams, Georgia born and raised.
Mm-hmm.
And living the life in the arts and professional entertainment realm, productions for a lot of his life. I feel like that. Let's talk about that just a little bit because I feel like that's a whole separate episode, and this episode's going to kind of go a different way. But tell us about your experience so far with working. We met on working on the show Will Trent. We're not sponsored by anybody. No big companies that produce that show talk to us or give us money. So, but that's where we met. And what else? Some more of your experience here working in production.
So I went to school for it. In undergrad, graduated from Georgia State University, studying film, and afterwards I got a few gigs here and there, day playing as a PA. I would be on some reality TV shows, like Love and Hip Hop, Little Women Atlanta. Those are like the main two that I would really kind of go back and forth on. I did some commercials that get shot here, and that was really my leg in the door, just doing some commercials, like different, drug commercials for
like PSAs type thing?
Yeah, exactly, like those types of things, and doing like commercials for different networks, for just different comedy tours and stuff like that that will be going on, that would be sponsored by stuff like BET, VH1, all those things.
Nice.
So that was a lot of fun. Commercials actually were a lot of fun just because it's a 2-day gig, 3-day gig, and then you get your money and you run. So I really enjoyed those. Those were a lot of fun. And then I got more into TV, which is where I really wanted to be. And so I did work on things like BET's American Soul. I did work on the show. Oh my goodness! Now the name now the name is leaving me all of a sudden. But it was on Fox. It was a singing show. 3 girls. They were in a girls group.
Well, for anybody out there, if you can guess it before Corey tells us, you get all the points for the day.
Yeah, get all the points for the day. 50 points to Gryffindor.
That's right.
I right now my brain is really leaving me, and I really enjoyed that show. That's crazy. But yeah, I did some work on that show.
You were on Kindred as well. You worked on Kindred?
Yeah, I worked on Kindred. That came on FX. I worked on Ordinary Joe. I worked on Genius, which is probably one of the, not saying that every show isn't fun, but that one was really fun just because of the fact that it's an anthology series. So each season is different. And so the crew was different and all that stuff, and
Oh
so
wow.
it was really interesting because I was coming on. So technically, we came on the third season was when the season I worked on.
Okay.
Um, but it was basically like working on the first season because it's a new cast, new crew, new everything for this new season. And so everybody was kind of like learning it and doing it as we went, if you will. But it was so much fun. I mean, everybody on that cast and on that crew was just so nice, such a family feeling
Now,
to it.
do you prefer being on now everybody's crew? If you work on a show, your crew, actors,
Hmm.
if you're lifting the boards and hanging the lights or reading the lines. But do you prefer behind the camera or in front of the camera?
Um, I guess it's a mixture of both,
Okay.
right? So all the work that I have done in front of the camera, in terms of like scripted series, this has been background work. Being a background actor, that's how I got my foot in the door. Actually, before I became a PA, a
Oh, very
production
cool.
assistant. For people who don't know, so I started off as a background actor, background talent, and I was just talking up to the PAs, talking to the ADs, and
Network,
just like,
network, network.
yeah. So I was just talking to them. I was like, "This is what I want to do. I went to school for this, and just like really eager." And one of the ads actually gave me a day playing gig, and so I came on, worked under her a couple of times, and so that was really cool. And then from there, another ad that was on that same set was working on another set, and so then they gave me a call, and so I went on and day played with them a couple of times. So that's really kind of like how I got my foot in the door. I mean, how I made it work and how I did that. So I would go and day play. And I was lucky enough that I had a boss because I did have a full time job because I
Hmm.
was like, day playing isn't going to pay the bills, obviously.
Right.
But I had a full time job. And my boss, luckily enough, she grew up in LA. And so she's very used to like, how the industry is and all that stuff. And so she was very um, flexible and worked with me. Like if I told her, I was like, hey, I just got a call to go in and day play Wednesday, Thursday. Is that cool? Can I do that? And she was like, yeah, let me check. And so then like, and there was only a couple of times that she told me like, yeah, no, that won't work. And so I had
Right.
to choose between, the day job or like this gig that could possibly turn into a full time job, but
Right.
wasn't a full time job, So
But it's good to
there
have that
were,
support system there, though. You're a perfect example of those that everybody starts at the bottom at some point, right? Some
right.
rocket faster than others. Some have ins or connections or family business or something like that. But for those of us actors, there's the stigma of background, right? I don't want to be BG, and it's like $100 a day or $50 for this, and I'm not going to be seen, and it's a long day. But look at what you took it as. You went in there like, hey, that's what I got to do. Great. So I'm a little, party goer or a cop guy in the back. But you're
Right.
networking. You started talking to PAs. You started asking the questions, and I know Corey enough that it wasn't in the annoying fashion because there are BG out there that do
Yeah.
talk and do network, but you're kind of like, okay, get away from me, kid. Thanks.
Right.
Good luck. So I think you're an awesome testament to that. Of it is real, it is true. He's in Atlanta and made it happen and is continuing to make it happen. So
Absolutely.
great example for that. And then having that support system, which I think is even more important. It is pretty much who you know. I mean, that's the stigma, that's the cliche. Not stigma,
Hmm.
I guess it's a cliche, but it's who you know and what you know. And as awesome as like the production aspect is of Corey's life, it's gonna have to be another episode because there's so many questions right now I have in my mind. Um, but the big thing that Corey's here today for, um, in a redirection here is mental health. It's and I love the fact that you were able to kind of mention that you had a support system. You had people at a certain point in your life that helped you, you know, rearrange schedules to do things that you want. But it's my understanding that there was a time where you felt like there wasn't, like you were kind of lost, that you kind of had a little would you call it a turn of the century at 25 kind
Yeah.
of thing. You want to explain a little bit of that?
Yeah. So, before turning 25, so after I graduated from college, from undergrad, I did not have a job right away. I was really depressed about that, actually. And so I had coined the term postgraduate depression,
Mm.
not knowing that that was a real term, right? And so I was talking to some of like my mentees and stuff like that were still in undergrad, and they were like, how are things going? And I was like, honestly, it sucks. Like, this is not fun.
Yeah.
And it's not even because of the fact that, like, the real world is hard. Like, college is hard. All the things are hard. But it sucks just because I'm not even working. Like, we were sold this dream of go to college and then you come out and you're more qualified than everybody else. So now you get a job. And I was like, I'm not even using my degree right now. Like,
Yeah.
what was the purpose of me even coming here? What am I doing? So I was really beating myself up hard about that. And yeah, then I got into retail, which is where I was working the full-time job while doing the day playing gigs and all that stuff. But I got in and yeah, I just started talking, being a little bit more candid about the fact that like I'm very grateful to have a job, but like this isn't what I want to do. This sucks. Like I don't feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm 22 years old. I'm 23 years old. I'm 24 years old. Like I'm spending this time working in retail, working in fashion, which I mean, you know that I enjoy getting dressed and I love fashion and all those
Right.
things, but it's I don't want to make a career of it. Like that
Right.
wasn't my goal. My goal wasn't to come here and sell Chanel bags every day. Like that wasn't
Right.
my goal, right?
You were making the best of what you had, the situation you were in, but it wasn't necessarily what you would have picked.
Exactly. And so I then just got into therapy. Nothing super intense because I didn't have insurance or anything like that at the time. So I was like, I can't afford $300 a visit.
Right.
But what I can afford is maybe $350 a month, which breaks down to this little app. There's a few of them out there, so I won't name drop or anything like that. But I did do a telehealth kind of visit, kind of therapy based app,
Okay.
and so I did that, and that just opened up the world to me. I was like, oh my gosh, like here I am able to kind of text my therapist and tell her like, hey, I'm having a tough day today because I'm dealing with anxiety about I'll never leave this retail job. I'll never get out of here.
Right.
And so that was like the first kind of like aha moment of like not defining yourself based off of your job. She was like, if you want to be a writer, if you want to direct, if you want to act, whatever it is that you want to do in the entertainment industry, you can do that. You don't have to be so reliant on it being a means of income. I know that you would like to make it your main thing, and maybe it can become that, or maybe it can turn into something a little bit more. But as of right now, like, what can you do with what you have?
And that's the hardest thing is we're so trained and we're so educated when we go to school that the goal is to get a job to make money. A lot of
Right.
things, especially those of us that are in the arts or entertainment, which is this huge thing that got everybody through COVID and everything else, that we turned to Netflix and we turned to movies and TV. But you're not. It's hard to break that. Well, I have a water bill. I got electric. I got rent.
Exactly.
I got to eat.
Right.
So
It
yeah.
was very hard to kind of get out of that mindset, and it wasn't right away that that clicked for me, right? Because that therapy session was at like 23, and I didn't start this like major mental health journey that you know now until 25. So fast forward 2 years later, and I'm turning 25, and I'm a little bit more like into like the mental health scene, right? I'm a lot more into it. I'm talking about it very candidly, talking to people. I don't know
How
if you
did
do
they
this.
react? I don't mean to cut you off, but like
Hmm.
the stigma, that which now I'm using the word in the right way. The stigma is, people hear mental health, and it's just now in 2023 becoming like a, hey, it's okay, but kind of, I'm assuming back in your day it was that like you don't want to tell people you're going to see a therapist because then they think you're crazy or you can't handle your stuff. Or how did people react when you were kind of letting them know or saying, hey, I got an appointment, like, or whatever?
Hmm. So my parents didn't even know that I went to therapy. They didn't even know that I had downloaded the app or anything like that.
Okay.
Who I was living with at the time,
Okay.
and so they didn't even know that I was like in therapy when I was in therapy until I started talking about it, and they're like, "Wait, what?" And I said, "Yeah, like I was clinically depressed, living in you guys' house under your roof."
You didn't even know.
Yeah, you didn't even know, and I mean, it's because I was a high functioning. I had high functioning depression. Like I could wake up every day, I could go to work, I could do the motions, I could talk, I could laugh and do all the things, but like I still was not feeling like me. I still was not feeling good. And so from that, once I started talking about it a little bit more, my parents got a little bit more intrigued. My brother got really, really intrigued. A lot of my friends who are people that work with me on my nonprofit, a nonprofit was born out of this,
Okay.
but a lot of people that are working with me on my nonprofit are friends that were just kind of amazed, because I was this person that was all the things in college and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I was involved in so many different organizations and clubs, and I was, Mr. Popular on campus, and everybody knew me, and I knew everybody, and I was, waving, smiling, happy, all that good stuff. So it was just, for a lot of people, it was kind of like a 180, if you will, of like, oh
Shell
wait,
shock.
so yeah, it was
Yeah.
like, wait,
It's
like,
it's kind of in that realm of, the only thing I can relate it to is like hearing that Robin Williams was depressed,
yeah,
which is very
yeah,
common with a lot of stand-ups or a lot of comedians, because they can hide behind their jokes, and you just think that, well, they
hmm,
tell jokes in the movies and on stage, and they go home and tell jokes and they're fun. And as you're attaining, attesting to, is the fact that, sometimes that's the cover up. That's
right,
the, I want to come off as normal, but I'm not. And
hmm,
nowadays, the cool thing is that's okay. Like,
right. And it's so different now. I mean,
mm-hmm,
even from like 25, so I'm 29 now for people that are listening. But so just 4 years ago at 25, it was just sort of becoming kind of like acceptable to talk about
mm-hmm,
in terms of social media wise and all that stuff. But still within the community, within like the African American community, it was still very taboo, right?
right.
Especially within my family. My family grew up in Middle Georgia, in a town called Millersville, Georgia. Anybody that knows anything about Millersville, Georgia, is like, outside of it being a college town, like growing up, the stigma used to be that's where the crazies go. They had a really big mental institution hospital down there, and so and it was one of the few places in the South, or one of the few places in the country, from my understanding. I hope I'm not getting those facts wrong. That you could self admit yourself into.
Oh, wow, okay.
And so, people that felt like they were not okay, people that, just anything, like, people that were in prison, there was a prison portion of the hospital as well. So like, if you were deemed to have, any kind of mental health issues or mental health challenges, while you were imprisoned as well in the state of Georgia, sometimes there were people that came from neighboring states that were shipped in.
Okay.
But yeah, they would be checked into, Central State Hospital. Central State was the hospital, and I mean, a lot of my family worked there growing up. I
Okay.
have a lot of family that is in healthcare, and they got their start in healthcare working for that hospital.
Did you feel like
Um,
it was even worse because that was there? Did it feel like you had to cover up your feelings or everything a little bit more because you grew up with, essentially like this the crazies around, and you didn't want to be
yeah,
considered one of those? Or
no, absolutely. That was a part of it. I mean, I had cousins that were checked in to the hospital, and these weren't necessarily cousins that I grew up around knowing, but you hear
okay.
the stories, right? You grow up and you're at the dinner table and you start hearing them talk about cousin this, cousin that,
Right.
that's in there, and he just ain't right, or something's wrong with her, and all this kind of stuff. So when you have these feelings, that you're feeling of, whether it be self harm, substance abuse, which I did have a stint with, because my family also has, a history of alcoholism, and I didn't go down the alcohol. I never classified as an alcoholic,
Hmm.
but I saw myself going that route, which is why I had to stop, and I had to there was a lot of things I had to check myself on.
Right.
Um, and it's because of the knowledge of, A, having family that is checked into the hospital, B, having family that worked at the hospital, C, when you tell people where your family is originally from, people that are born and raised in Georgia, and when you tell them, like, oh yeah, my family's from Milledgeville, and their head cocks to the side and they look at you, and they're like,
Did you
oh,
catch
like,
it? Type of look.
right, exactly. And it's like, okay, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
So, it was a lot of things that factored into me ultimately not really speaking up and saying anything
Hmm.
about it, and just kind of like taking it upon myself to do it,
So what
and
what
to
triggered
handle it.
you? What took you at 23, 24ish to go, and 25ish as like the culmination? What in you, or was there some kind of something you read, something you saw, somebody you talked to, somebody you knew that triggered, like, I gotta stop, or I gotta, was there a moment that you remember, or?
So I just remember really being like, telling myself, just very candidly. I don't know if you're gonna have to blank this out or anything like that, but I just remember one morning I woke up and I was like, "This shit sucks." Like, that's
Mhm.
literally what I said out loud to myself, talking to God, like, and I was like, I don't know if I can say that, like, in the middle of my prayer, but I was just
Mm-hmm.
like, this sucks. Like, this is how I feel right now. Like, I don't feel good. I'm not happy. I'm not, and I should be, right? I'm home with
Mm-hmm.
my family. I have a roof over my head. I have food on the table. I am working a job, a stable job. I have a car that is functioning. All my limbs working. I have breath in my lungs. I'm healthy. My family's healthy. I don't have to worry about, having to pay rent. My parents are nice enough that I can stay here rent free.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what am I really sad about? Like, what is there to be sad about,
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, but I am. I'm not happy. I don't feel happy. I don't feel comfortable with myself. I am coming home every night. I'm drinking more than I normally would be. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
just drinking out in social settings anymore. And every time that I am drinking, I'm drinking to get drunk, or I'm drinking to like just get tipsy enough that I can be like, okay, yeah, like today did not suck, like
Right.
all
Kind of
that stuff. So
cover it up.
I'm noticing all these things. I'm like, this is not who I am.
Yeah.
And so luckily for me, I was able to kind of have that self-talk moment, which a lot of people don't have. But I was lucky enough for me that I was able to have a self-talk moment to say, like, you're not okay. You need to seek help. What can you do?
Yeah.
And so, it's just a matter of like getting on Google, doing a Google search, and like discovering how expensive therapy was,
Mm-hmm.
and how I could not afford that luxury. But then
Mm-hmm.
finding one of the therapy apps and saying, okay, I can't afford this. This is a nice entry level, to make it to make it.
I have to do something. So
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So that was kind of my moment. And then once I got more into it, I was like, more people should know about this, especially more people in my community,
Mm-hmm.
more people that grew up like I did. And it should be something that we can make normal, right? And anyway, normal is subjective, but like it should be something that we should be able to make plain and simple for people to understand. And it doesn't have
Right.
to be this like large, daunting task of
Start to
like me talking
accept
to
it and
somebody.
help the people as opposed to segregating them and saying you're too messed up to we don't want to deal with you.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And then that's where the Mental Health Summit Corporation, my nonprofit, was born, was out of that. Where actually a year prior, so let me back up a little bit. I, so after I got like on this high horse of like, more people should know about this,
Mm-hmm.
I was auditioning for a dance company, actually. And
Nice.
one of the guys that was in the audition with me was Mr. Georgia. And
Okay.
so, in his opening spiel, as we're giving our opening spiels, each of us goes around talking about who we are, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was giving his spiel about who he is, and he's like, I'm the current reigning Mr. Georgia. And I was like, Mr. Georgia? I was like, what is this? Like, okay, I didn't even know there was such thing as male pageantry, blah, blah, blah. So I'm talking to him about it, just intrigued about that, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward, the next year, there was, I see the call to action, like the open call, like we're looking for men to be a part of the Mr. United States pageant competition. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is the thing that boy was
It's
doing.
real, yeah.
And so I submitted and got into the pageant and all this stuff, and my platform was mental health. And so that was kind of like where I got on, because I was on this high horse and I was like, everybody should be knowing about this. And I was like, this is the
Right.
perfect platform. Like I can come in, I can do this, and I can tell people about mental health and like share my story
Mm-hmm.
and all those things. So I was really, really excited. I didn't go on to win that year. But the year after, I launched the Mental Health Summit Corporation in 2000 and whatever year that was, 18, 19. And now here we are, 4 years later, going on 5. That is still going. We're putting on events, hosting educational and entertainment events. I'm marrying my passion with film. Production alongside with this, so it's not that I am solely getting out here and having people talk to people in like a classroom setting or anything like that, because I want mental health to be cool, if that makes sense. I don't want it to be
right, because you think of a summit, mental health summit. You think of like, okay, I'm going to a conference center. I'm going to sit in a chair. I'm going to watch somebody on stage, and they're just going to tell their story. But how is, so then you're blending then a little bit of the fun and a little bit of the production aspect then?
Yeah, so I blend that in, and we put on a virtual summit basically every year. The first year was in person, and it was very simple. It was just a panel discussion. That's all I did. I was like, getting my feet wet. Let's just see what we can do. We hosted a panel discussion, sold out all 75 tickets. I was like, okay, so if I can sell 75 tickets that can go towards fundraising and sending somebody else to therapy at a discounted rate, then let's do that. And so that's what we started off with. And so we sold out all 75 seats. We got some extra donations that were sent in. And so we were able to send somebody to therapy at a discounted rate. And one of the therapists that was on the panel helped us, with the finding a therapist that could do the discounted rate and all that stuff. So I felt so fulfilled after that first year. It was a very successful first year. But then every year after, the year in 2020, the year following, the pandemic strikes, and we're like, okay, what can we do to put on an event this year? And that's where I was like, okay, let me tap into the people that I know. Let's see what can we do, right? And so then that's when we were like, oh, well, let's do a live event. Let's do a live taping. And so I'm tapping into my resources, the people that I've met off of these different sets and things. I'm asking them like sound equipment and video equipment. And how can I do this and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, the tools.
So then and then that's what we did. So we put that on, right? And dance is a big part of my life as well. It was one of the saving graces for me in high school. I started dance pretty late, but dance was a saving grace for me. So dance will always have a home at the Mental Health Summit, is what I always say.
Awesome.
And so we had like an opening number that was choreographed, and just to show like all the different various outlets that you can have for mental health and maintenance. And so we had an opening number that we videotaped and edited and had all that stuff good to go. And then we had spoken word performances and all these things. We had all these different things going on. We had speakers come on and like actually talk and do what they have to do. We had a roundtable discussion. And so it kind of like flowed a little bit like a live taping of we likened it to like an award ceremony or like a church service.
Oh, okay.
And so that's kind of how we modeled it. So we went in and we watched award shows and we watched church services that do their live tapings. And so we're like, okay, what can we take from this? What can we take from that?
Right, kind of get that so you can kind of participate a little bit if you want to, but you're not forced to like tell your story and, all that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so that's kind of where it grew out of. And so now we have that perfect kind of marrying of the production aspect with the educational aspect of like, here's some things that you may not know. And each year that we do it, we learn something new when we're doing these tapings. And so we're really excited for this year's event. It's going to be virtual again. We want it to be in person because it'll be our 5th event, even though we're 4 years old, but it'll be our 5th event. So we're like, ooh, 5. Like, we're halfway to 10. We're like, we got to do something big. But life has happened, as you know, my personal story, my grandmother passing not too long ago, being laid off and all these things. So life has just sort of like brought a lot of things to a grinding halt, if you will, or at least a severe slowdown.
We went obstacles,
Right. So we won't be able to be in person this year because missed booking dates and all that stuff. We are a small team, so that is a reality. But we're still going to do virtual. Like, if there's anything that we have, in a sense, mastered, it is doing the virtual event. So we're going to do virtual event again this year. And I'm really excited for it just because it's going to be, we have a lot of great ideas that we're getting ready and getting prepared for. Like, we're getting casting calls ready to start getting more people in that can come in and join us on some of our more fun pieces that we do. Like, we have a card game, if you will, that we do on camera. It's called biofeedback. And this is where I have people that are like in really close relationships. So like, maybe it's you and your loved one, like you and Danelle, or it's you and me and my brother, or me and my dad, or something like that, right? So biofeedback, because the actual definition of biofeedback is how your body responds when you're in a situation, right? But then also biofeedback in the sense that it's someone that I'm biologically connected to, and I'm giving them feedback on my mental health, status, and what it is I feel like. And so we have two people, they sit down across from each other, and they just answer these questions on these cards. And the questions kind of go every which way.
Okay.
When was the first time you learned about, what mental health is, or mental health awareness, and how does it feel to be you right now? Like, just all these different kinds of questions
Okay.
That we have. And so it's really fun. So that's one of the more fun things. But then we also have like more talk showy kind of things where I kind of get my Oprah on and I'm sitting down on the couch with somebody.
Bring out the
and
wigs.
Yeah, bring out the wigs. Yes. And so I'm sitting down and I'm talking with them, and we're just having a cool conversation. Just being a mental health professional, be it a licensed counselor or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But we're sitting down and we're talking. We're discussing some of the things that we hear right on social media. Like last year, the big word was triggered. Like, this triggered me, and I was like, so many people are using this word wrong. Like, what can we do to combat this?
Kind of getting that whole facts thing, so that it's not level things out so people understand. I'm going to say I'm going to interrupt you because we're going to say this a couple times because again, one of the purposes of Kurzology is to help promote and connect. So we want everybody to know about the Mental Health Summit and this virtual event, which is August 27th. I will have it in the show notes. I will get all the clicks and the links and the tickets and the times and all that sort of stuff out to you guys. But if for some reason you have to go and you stop listening right here, the Mental Health Summit is August 27th, 2023, so just over a month from now. And you can check them out also through YouTube, Instagram, and their website. I'll have all of that in the show notes, but I just want to keep putting out there August 27th.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Yes, Sunday, absolutely. August 27th. And to make it even easier for you guys, if you want to keep up with us, our annual event, this is what this is the fourth Sunday of August every year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the fourth Sunday of August every single year, and that also is kind of like something that's near and dear to my heart as well. So August is my birthday month. The Mental Health Summit Corporation was born. It was born out of me wanting to do something more for my birthday, and I remember August also used to be Youth Sunday. It used to be Youth Day at my church growing up.
Oh, okay.
And so the fourth Sunday of August just kind of was like a kind of a nod to that. It was one of my favorite times growing up because we used to have all types of things. We used to get up there and dance and step and sing in the choir, and it was just like a big and it was the whole day was put on by the youth, planned by the youth. Like it was a thing. So it was a lot of fun.
Fourth Sunday in the last month, right before they kick you back into school.
Exactly.
Come have some fun, now go back to school.
Exactly. So it was a lot of fun, and it just gave me something to look forward to. And I grew up in the church, obviously, and so it was a lot of fun for me to be able to go spend time with people that I not only went to school with. So we had fun at school, but we also were able to have fun at church. And so this was me kind of giving a nod back to that, because since graduating and being out of church and all that stuff, things obviously have changed, right? But I still kind of want to give a little bit of a nod to that. And and it's only an hour of your time too. The virtual event is only an hour. It's not very long at all, because I know attention spans and things like that, even my attention span, that's partially why I did it that way as well. I was like, I have undiagnosed ADD, so I'm I just know for a fact that after about 45 minutes, I'm done. I'm checking the timestamp. I'm like, how much more do I have left?
Right.
I can barely sit still for these 2-hour-long movies now. It's a lot. So I'm like, okay, what can I do? It's usually about 45 minutes to an hour of your time.
And if you want more, they can always connect and be like, hey, I want to talk to somebody else, or whatever. You can always, you want them craving more. That's what I'm learning with this podcast too. Is okay, what's the magic number? Anywhere between 20 minutes and 40 minutes, or if we go longer on something important, it's so hard. But you can always leave them wanting more.
Always leave them wanting more. That's always what you want to do in life.
Yeah, that's such a good thing, and it's such a good cause, because again, it's so weird because just in the past couple of years, I've started thinking about it. It's one of those, I'm never afraid. I don't get embarrassed easily. I'm never afraid to talk about anything, as you've learned over the past 9 months in knowing me. It's just really weird. I've noticed myself where I don't know if I could diagnose it as a depression or an anxiety or whatever, but I've had those feelings of wow, why am I getting all sweaty? Why am I so nervous with something that is just, cooking dinner or something really easy? And so when I start to step back, like it seems like you have, you start to assess like, man, yeah, it's well because I'm getting all these, rejection letters from looking for jobs, or I have this going on in life, or I'm stressed out at this or this. And I went through a lot too with when I lost my dad in 2019. I mean, that, losing a parent is just like a whole other category of things.
Right.
And so I actually, for the first time, went to therapy. And it was my wife that was like, it's okay to go. And I'm like, well, yeah, I know. I mean, just talk to somebody else because I'm the one that closes up. You express yourself. You were able to talk to people and kind of decide on your own. I kind of had to be told because I was like, even if I'm paying you, you're not going to want to listen to this. You didn't know my dad. Like, so I think it's just so important.
Yeah, no, and that's something that I tell people all the time. And this was something that I was deeply passionate about, even with talking to people that were a little bit more on the religious side of my life. And just letting them know, I think God has given people so many gifts and talents, right? Like a talent isn't only you being able to dance or you being able to sing or you being able to act or whatever, as we typically look at. I think God has blessed people with the ability to be able to listen, like actively listening and being able to lend an open ear, an open heart, an open mind to be able to listen to me, my problems, and what I'm going through. And then from there, you being able to synthesize the information, turn around and help me shift my perspective or help me understand a little bit more about why my perspective may be this way is so impactful. And like that's something that I tell people all the time is that there are people that are talented in so many different ways. And you can sit down and you can talk to somebody that is just, even if they're just a good listener, even if you're not going to therapy, right? Still, if you have someone in your life that you know is like just a great listener, ask them if they can just be an open ear. Like you may not be looking for solutions, but that helps.
And that's perfect because that's how I work. I actually, when I hear myself say things, even if it's the same thing I've said before, and just if you hear dingling in the background and some like wind chime, we got like some storm just rolled in, which I can't obviously control. So sorry to everybody during, this will be the least best audio podcast probably, but it's like mega storm blackout here. So everything's running on batteries, so I'll be good to go. But just so you know, but getting back, I'm the type of person when I listen to myself speak, even if I'm in a disagreement with Danelle and I'm hearing myself tell her something, I'll go, ooh, okay, yeah, I actually do believe that because that's the fourth time I've said it. Or, wow, that's how I sound. And I think that's important too, Talking to somebody is them listening, yes, but sometimes it's also you listening to yourself.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it. There's so many different avenues, just like how there's so many different avenues for us to be able to get into our jobs working in production, right? There's so many different avenues for you to be able to enter in a way that is palatable for you with your own mental health journey.
Right.
And so it's not just this clinical setting of you sitting down talking to a therapist or whatever. And there's some therapists that are super duper chill. Anybody that's going to go and check out like the stuff that Chris will link in to the mental health summit, like you'll see like a lot of the people that I'm working with, they're very relatable, they're very open, very honest individuals, and they're not just saying things just to try and sound educated. It's like, no, I went to school for this. Yes, I have the licensing, the licensures or and all that stuff, whatever. I am a licensed professional. However, this has to be put into a way that is consumable for regular everyday people, right? And that's the cool part for me, is to see all these different people and how they approach it. And this is your profession, but this is also like your life's work, and these are the things that you really care about.
Well, I started looking up statistics too, and it's somewhere between 80 and 90% of people just want to feel heard.
Yeah.
You don't have to remember, you don't necessarily have to spit back exactly what Corey just said and be like, oh, I totally understand because I went through that at 25 too. Odds are you didn't. It's just a matter of is feeling like you heard, getting it off your chest, and then if there's something that you need direction to, maybe somebody can give you that direction and be like, hey, this may not help because, hey, you're not married, but, I'm married and this is what we did when da-da-da. And you'd be like, oh, with my boyfriend or girlfriend or, oh, okay, yeah, it's not marriage, but I can apply it. Or I can apply it to myself.
Yeah.
When I start
it's such a human connection. It's that's what it is, right? Like, we're human beings. We crave connection. Whether you're an introvert or extrovert or ambivert, whatever, you still crave that human connection, right? In some way, shape, or form. And it's intrinsic. It's a part of who we are. It's engraved into our DNA and all that stuff. So I think that it's amazing when you're able to find that connection and you're able to talk with somebody a little bit easier about what it is that you're going through. And even like you said earlier about, oh, they don't want to hear, they don't want to hear about what's going on or what I'm going through with my dad. It's like, no, that's A, what they're paid to do, but then also B, like that's what they want to do. They got into this because they really want to do it and they really want to help people. They want to see the work. And if you are dealing with a therapist or a licensed mental health professional that you feel as though isn't there to help you, guess what? You can change it.
Yeah.
You can absolutely get somebody else, get somebody that you feel like will be able to better service you and all that stuff. Because there are people that I have spoken with that I have talked to after our events even that are like, is there like is she accepting clients right now because my therapist just isn't doing it for me, or I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm so sorry to hear that first and foremost, because I feel like everybody's therapist should be the best therapist for them, but it's still you're dealing with another human being, right? So you may not click with them. Like their way of communicating just may not be your way of being able to receive their message.
Exactly.
So it's a whole plethora of things. I don't want it to seem like, it's just like, yes, get into therapy and everything's gonna be okay. Like get into therapy, find some kind of outlet for you, even if it's not necessarily therapy. There's a number of different outlets. There's art therapy, music therapy, dance therapy. There's group therapy where you get into a group setting and as a group you guys collectively share experiences, but you also collectively like do practices to work towards things and stuff like that, to work towards healing. And that was also a really great thing. I did a couple of group therapy sessions, and that was very new for me. And I started, but just kind of like getting into stuff just because, I mean, if I'm going to talk about it, I want to know a little bit more about it, right?
And that's a different level too. I mean, to do it in front of other people, it's one thing to be, quote unquote, locked in a room with a therapist and they're not going to talk about it outside the doors. Well, neither are the people in the group, but 4 or 5, 3 other people in the room where you're like, okay, well, you're putting yourself out there. You know?
And something that I learned from that was, because I went into it thinking it was going to be a little bit more like, like the televised like AA sessions, right? You know, like how we see on TV where it's like, hi, my name is Corey.
My name is Chris.
I once was depressed. Oh, hi, Corey. I was depressed too, or whatever. Like, it's not even like that. It's like, okay, today's focus. There's someone that's leading the group, and they're like, today's focus is on fighting anxiety, right? And so then as a group, you guys are coming together with, you do share, but you're not necessarily sharing like, oh, I have crippling anxiety. You're just kind of like, okay, so when I'm experiencing anxiety, it oftentimes feels like this for me. And then the group's like, okay, that makes sense. And then the therapist walks through, and who else has felt like this, and all this other kind of stuff. And so then you guys kind of like work together, and it's so magical to me because it's truly community.
Well, and you're hearing somebody else, say something that maybe you went through. It's the same thing. Again, I could tell Danelle, like, you got this, and you've studied enough for this test or whatever, and she'll believe me, but be like, oh, I still don't know. But then somebody else will tell the exact same thing I just said, but she believes them. So it's that same concept of, if somebody else, you hear your voice in someone else, and you go, okay, I'm not alone.
Right.
I'm not the only idiot. Because you're not an idiot to begin with, first of all.
Exactly.
All of this is okay. Direct to camera. Everything, it is okay. Please talk. Please find the help, whether it's one person, 2 person, whether it's me, Corey. Check out the summit on August 27th. I'll post everything. If not, it's only an hour of your time. That's like sitting in your car. That's not even all of the traffic in Atlanta. So you can afford.
Not at all.
So please check out the summit on August 27th.
It's going to be such a big help for a lot of people, and I mean, we're going to be able to bring just a new way of viewing mental health. That's always what it is for me, and our tagline is "Get the knowledge, get the help, free your mind." And so it's one of those things of like, if we can start you off building a good foundation, and then we can get you some help, and then from there you're able to free your mind. You're able to find some kind of way for you to put these things to practice, for you to find an outlet even or something like that, then we've done our job, right?
Yes.
At the very basic level, we've been able to do our job of like help you out. And I want people to feel heard. I want people to feel seen. And like, no matter how you interact with us or where you come in contact with us, be it YouTube, Instagram,
Check
on
out
the
the website.
website
Yeah.
even, on the website even, or if it's just you come in contact with me in person. I wanted it to always feel like a safe space. And that's one of my goals, is to always be, not only be a person that is a human at heart, but also to be a safe space for people. And
Live what you say.
yeah,
Talk the
and
talk and
that's
walk the walk.
exactly it.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm all about congruency, and that's the biggest thing for me. It's like, okay, if I'm going to be doing this work, like, this is not only just like me saying like, oh yeah, mental health is important to me. No, like, it truly is important to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm emboldened and I'm impassioned by it, and I want it to feel like you can come and you can talk to me if you have a conversation with me in the grocery store, and you have a conversation with me at the event. You're meeting the same person.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know and that's a big part of it, and I talk about that with the staff and everybody all the time,
And I love
about
that it
just making
stemmed
sure that
from
we do
something
that.
you actually experienced. Because it wouldn't be bad if you just had an interest in like mental health and you became a psychiatrist or something. You know, that's all good too. I'm not belittling any of that. But I think
Hmm.
there's something to be said in you were moved because of what you went through to do this and said, hey, not only do I want to help myself because I'm going through some stuff here, but I want to help others. Like, how can I do that? And that's such a huge step. And on behalf of everybody that has gone to the summits or has seen them so far in the past 4 times, thank you. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing this one on the 27th. To have it out there, to have an outlet for people to check out.
Yes.
Because you've had your journey. You've walked things and you've learned, which is a big thing. I do want to get back to Corey, you, with our tales here, right? So
Hmm.
Tales is a test, adventures, lessons, entertainment, and successes. So what if it is what you've already talked about? That's awesome too. But is there a specific test that you remember that has challenged you in life? Like specifically, was there a loss or something that you went through specifically?
um I think, uh this is very recently that I was talking about this with one of my close friends.
Mm-hmm.
A test of mine that I didn't realize was such a huge test for me was coming out to my family.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
So that I didn't realize how big of a test it was, how big of a challenge it was for me, mentally, right? Because by the time I came out to my family, I came out very, very late. But I was essentially living, as an out gay man, right, in the
Mm-hmm.
world and all the things. But I just hadn't said anything to my immediate family. And I had come to the realization that I one day want to be married. I one day want to, have a life partner, and
Mm-hmm.
I want to adopt these little kids, and that don't have their biological parents in their life or whatever. And I want to do the things. I want to do something with my
Mm-hmm.
life, right? But I was just like, sir, how are you going to do this if you haven't even confirmed for your parents?
Yeah.
And you can't just bring somebody home and be like, hey, by the way, this is going to be the hubby,
Just for
and
let you
in
know.
two
Yeah.
weeks, and in 2 weeks we have two little kids that we're going to go pick up and we're going to adopt, and these are going to be our kids for all intents and purposes, all these things. And I was like, okay, like, let's just not even go down that path, right? And
Right.
so I was like, okay, I have to do this. And that was like a really, really big challenge. Although I did it in a very casual way, I didn't make it a big, super big, huge deal. I just came home one day. I was like, hey, everybody, like, let's sit down real quick.
Family
Let's have a
meeting.
talk. Yeah, like, really quickly, let's just have a chat. Let's have a chit chat. Um, but in that moment, as I was telling them, like, I was preparing to say the words, my mouth got so dry, and I was just like so nervous, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing? Um, and then, as know from working with me and knowing me now, obviously everything's okay. But at the moment, I was just so worried. I was so scared. I didn't know what to expect,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, everything turned out to be okay for me. But I mean, I kind of was beating myself up because it was like, why did it take you so long to say something aloud to your family? What was it, and all the things? And just from talking with my therapist and letting her know, like, hey, this is what I'm about to do,
Mm-hmm.
and this is how I feel about it, and I'm doing it at this moment in time because of X, Y, Z. And she was like, go for it. like you're doing it for all the right reasons because you're doing it for yourself. You're not doing it for them.
Right.
You're not doing it to try and seek any validation from them because that was the thing. Like I had come to terms with the fact that like no matter what, like this wasn't going away, right?
It's still you, yeah.
It's right. It's still me,
Yeah.
and it's something that I have fought, and that's a whole nother episode in and of itself as well. Going through the whole growing up a little gay boy,
right.
trying not to be gay and all that stuff.
Right.
Bible Belt South, it's a thing,
Yeah.
but still, like growing up and all that stuff. So once I had come to terms and I was doing everything for myself and not for them, that's when the dynamic shifted, and I didn't feel like it didn't matter whether they accepted that part of me or not. It was just the fact that I'm letting them know, so that way it wouldn't be, I'm doing you a service by letting you know, but I'm letting you know for my own sake, so that I can say like, once these things start to progress and start to happen for me in my life, whether you're on board or not, it's happening.
And that's super important because it is about you. That's the key to me. I mean, and it's hard because I don't know how I feel because obviously I can't relate. And so
Right.
I'm at a loss for words because I'm very sympathetic, empathetic, but to the point of I can't relate. So it's kind of like I feel all the things for you but not exactly.
And I know you being an actor and things like that, like you've been around so many different members of the LGBTQ plus community that like that's part of like where that compassion comes from, right? Because I mean, oftentimes we get into the arts and things like that as a means of release and as a means of acceptance because everybody, there's the saying like for the theater kids and all that stuff, like everybody's a weirdo, like we're all weirdos.
Yeah,
So
I was the nerd. I had no girlfriend until senior year of high school. Like I got straight A's and nobody wanted to talk to me.
Exactly. So it's like, you see, it's like, and we're all just so accepting of each other. It doesn't matter who you like or who you love or anything like that. It's just like, we all really love putting on this performance. We all really love making sure that like when it's showtime, right? So that's where we come together, and that's the community aspect of working in TV and film and theater and doing the performing arts, dance even. Like that's the reason why dance has such a huge place in my heart, because I found that like I didn't necessarily have to speak with my words, although I'm pretty good with my words. I didn't have to speak with my words. I could speak with my body. I could let the movements, I could let the music, I could let what you're visually taking in move you, and I could tell you much more through the pirouettes and the pliés and the leaps and the grand déjeunes and all this stuff. I could tell you much more through all that than I could ever say with my words. And so that was the reason why I really just attached myself to dance and to the performing arts.
I love it. What would you consider an adventure then? Would you think the whole Mr. Georgia thing was one of your bigger adventures, or?
Oh yeah, Mr. United States was definitely a big adventure. So after the first time not getting it, as you know, I don't give up easily.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually went back and I won the whole thing in the middle of the pandemic, actually in 2020.
Nice.
And so I went back and I was like, you have to prove to yourself that you can do this. It's not about even if I just made it one step further than I did the last time, at least I made it a step further, right? And I was like, and this time around, I don't know. I was so impassioned, and I felt very what's the word? I guess safe in the fact that it was a virtual pageant, and at the same time, we were planning everything that we were doing for the mental health summit. At the same time, I was planning out what I was going to do for the pageant. So since it was virtual, I was like, oh well, if you're going to do all this production value for the mental health summit. And that's going to culminate into
you're like the master of it now.
Yeah, I was like, that's the culmination of what you're going to do for, this is obviously your platform work. It's a culmination of what you're going to do for your platform and for the pageant. So you can't put on this great production for the mental health summit and then your platform work not match.
Right.
So it was just like, it all just kind of rolled itself into one big package, if you will. So that was a really big adventure.
Nice. What about a lesson? What you've talked about so many lessons, but is there one that really stands out that you would take, all the things you've been through as to, if you were to give advice, I guess, would be kind of, like a one-liner lesson, like.
My one-liner lesson. This was actually learned upon being laid off with the writer's strike and everything. Is
Mm-hmm.
that I think I mentioned it earlier in the recording too. That you're not your job, you're not your occupation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so often I think, especially for men, I don't know. I can only speak from a man's place as a man,
Mm-hmm.
but oftentimes I've noticed, even when I'm talking to other guys, that when we're like, hey, yeah, so how are you? Blah, 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 what do you do? Like, that's the first thing that comes out of our mouth
Yeah,
when
it's
we
all about
introduce ourselves to
title.
somebody.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I hate it.
So it's
I hate it.
exactly. It's like, what do you do? Like, oh, hey, I want to introduce you to my good friend Chris here. And then my mutual friend shakes your hand and they're like, oh, hey, Chris, nice to meet you. What do you do?
As soon as
And
I
I'm
say
like, oh my god.
actor, their eyes go down. They're like, oh.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, why is that the first question out of your mouth? Not like, oh, hey, nice to meet you, Chris. How are you?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're asking, what do you do?
Right.
And so it's pretty internalized, and so that was like the big thing for me. Is like, I'm not my job. So as I pivot, as anybody that's listening, as you pivot, or you may not be in your dream career field or anything like that, understand that like, you're not your job. You're not your occupation.
Mm-hmm.
You're so much more than that. You're a sum of so many other things. You're a brother. You're a son. You're an uncle. You're a nephew. You're a grandson. You're a granddaughter. All the female equivalents of those. You're all those things. Or a mother or a father, whatever.
Right.
You're so much more. You're just, even if you just go there. But like, if you write music, if you write books, if you design clothes, if you are I don't know, if you love cleaning, like anything, there's so many other things that you are besides just your occupation, what you do to make money, to keep the lights on, a roof over your head, and food on your table. There's so many other things, and everybody is multifaceted. So I like to think of myself as a gemstone. And once you get that ruby, that sapphire, that emerald, that diamond. Once you get that nice and polished, and it's all it's all cut, and you see all these different light reflections and things that are going on in it, like every single refraction, every single piece of light that like reflects off of you is who you are. So every facet of who you are, you want to make sure that like, as that light shines back out into the world, that people are able to see. So even if they are meeting dancer Corey, they're meeting a very authentic dancer Corey. Mm-hmm. But if they meet mental health Corey, they're meeting mental health Corey. If they meet writer producer Corey, they're meeting like all these different things that I am. All these different reflections, that they are all still very bright. They shine, and
but they're all still part of that one gem. So that's how that
one gem,
still that personality, the charisma, the character that you have, that's so relatable and likable. It can go through dance. It can go through writing. It can go through those things because it's still part of that one gem, that one ruby, that one sapphire or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. What about entertainment? What entertains Corey Sams?
Okay. There's a number of things that entertain Corey Sams.
What I have to do this, and it's an inside joke. I'm really not going to explain it just because it's kind of funny, but it's going to be funny, hopefully, to Corey. What does Corey find interesting?
I waited for it. I knew it was coming. What do I find interesting? Oh man. Lately I have rediscovered my love for reading. During this downtime, I have rediscovered my love for reading. I've read like 3 books in like the past like week and a half, and it's insane because I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't done this since high school. Reading like a number of books within like 2 weeks time span and all that stuff like that. That's the crazy stuff I used to do back then. I used to stay up late, like the way we binge watch movies and TV shows and stuff now, like up until like 3 a.m. I used to do that in high school. Like my mom used to come home from work because my mom comes home. She comes home really late. She works 12-hour shifts. In the operating room at the hospital, and so she would come home. She gets home at like 12 o'clock midnight, or sometimes even a little after midnight, like 12:30. And the light would be on in my room, and she'll come in the door. She's like, "Why are you still up?" And I would be like pages deep, like into a book, just so into it. And I've recently been doing that again lately because I don't have anything to do besides wake up and apply to jobs. So I've been like reading books at night, and I'm like, look up at the time, and it's lost, and it's like 3 a.m. I'm like, okay, go to sleep. But that's been what's really been entertaining me lately, is reading a good book. And it's not like the self-help books or anything like this. Like, this is full-blown like fiction novels, like, just getting lost in a whole nother world. I've really been enjoying that, and I've been enjoying some something else that has been keeping me entertained is learning like some graphic design stuff or whatever. I've been playing with my iPad, and I downloaded Procreate, and I've been like figuring out how to draw and do like these kind of like graphic design drawings and all that stuff.
Okay, yeah,
that's a lot of fun because I can draw. I'm not a drawer. I'm not an artiste of that sort, but it's still fun. Just kind of
but like a hobby that can be used in your profession as well. In case you don't want to hire somebody, kind of like the whole thing. If they won't get you, do it yourself. You know.
Exactly.
What about the hardest part? I don't even want to ask you for the S. Like I just want to be like, there's Corey's tail, because I feel like you've just the whole 62 minutes so far, which we'll wrap it up here in a second. At post production will be fun, but I'd rather talk forever and have all the things and have it was such an important discussion, which all of it has been successes in my mind. Looking upon what you have talked about, looking upon your life, there's so many successes. But because it is your tales, is there one that is a success? What is I did this with another guest, which I think is funny. I want to be like a reporter, like all the political reporters, for just 1 second and go. So, what is your definition of success? And of the things you talked about, what is the most successful? And I can't think of a third, but they always add like I just have one question. And. My two questions would be, what is your definition of success? And is there something other than what you've talked about today with us that is the most successful in your consideration?
Okay. I'm going to try and keep this brief, but also very like...
You've got the floor, yeah.
Very full at the same time. So, my definition of success is learning. That's my definition of success, and I get that from my father. He's big on education, and no matter what you do, if you learn something from it, whether it be even in moments of triumph, right? There's still a takeaway. There's still something to learn and grow from it. So for me, success is learning and growing, and just kind of like remaining humble within those moments, right? Even if it is a true success by definition of whatever you're doing, right? Like if you're playing a sports game and you won the game, right? Technically, you succeeded, you won.
Right.
But what is a takeaway, right? Like what are things that could have been improved upon? What are things that you learned from that? Like in that moment when you were dribbling the basketball and you came down the court and these people are putting pressure on your right side constantly, and you're not the strongest left dribbler, but you knew that you had to go switch to your left side in order to be able to make that layup, or whatever the case may be, right? You learned something in that moment, which was, I am a little bit more confident in my left side than I normally am, and I was able to successfully complete a layup in that moment and get my team 2 more points. So I can do it.
Even if you lost the game, like the goal, the success of the game is to win, but if you lost but still learned how to dribble on your left or keep your head up or whatever,
Exactly, and that's where I take that definition of success from, is from that, because there has been moments where when I was in the game and we did lose, but I learned like, I can go to the left side. Like I am actually stronger on that side than I thought I was. Let's go home and let's practice. Let's learn how to do that even more. So now you can be like better on the field, and you can be better on the court, and you can go out there and you can really do the things, and you can be everything everywhere all at once. Whatever. Right. Whatever you can do. So you can do that. But yeah, that's my definition of success, is just learning and growing and remaining humble in that learning and growth. And then another success story, or one that was talked about today, aside from the Mental Health Summit really being its own kind of success story, I think it mirrors so much of my own personal journey, because I am so personally tied to it. I think a success story of mine is just kind of
I mean, to me, it's your life. You've gone through. I mean, we all go through so much in such a different thing. But just hearing all the stories and getting to know you over the past, almost year, it's just a success of like, okay, I didn't get this, but I was a success because I did this. I know when I first met you, you wanted to work for the big company that we worked for, and you did. You finally got, you got there. And same thing with personal stuff. You've tried to do things and set goals for whether looking for a place to live or doing these things where you're getting there and it's like, okay, well, here's some obstacles, like you said earlier, but you adjust. You don't plan to lose family members. You don't plan to have bad days. You don't plan to lose your job. I mean, I moved to Georgia because of this job. I didn't think I wouldn't have come here if it was like, oh, you're going to be let go in 6 months. But you adjust and look at where we're at. So that's my success for you is your life.
and I received that. Like I think that's so beautiful because it's hard sometimes for you to take that from other people, right? Because you don't see it, right? When you're in the middle of it, when you're in the thick of it, you're not seeing all the beauty and splendor that's around you. Sometimes you're only seeing the weeds, and you're not seeing the beauty in the weeds, right? But you're just kind of like, I'm in the weeds right now. I'm not in the wildflowers. I'm not in the or even if you are in the rose bush, all you're seeing is the thorns.
Yep.
I think that's even better metaphor. Like, when everybody else is like, oh my gosh, she's surrounded by beautiful roses, but you're like, no, I'm in the middle of the rose bush. Like, I'm in the thorns right now. Like, this is uncomfortable. It hurts.
Right.
So it's hard. So I receive that. I love that. Thank you so much. Really, that truly just kind of like put a huge smile on my face. I was sitting here, I was like, oh my gosh. Like,
I didn't want to take away from your story, but I just feel like there's so much. I hear your struggle to find something and I'm kind of like, well, to me, it's easy. It's right there. It's all these things that you've been through and accomplished, and yeah, I mean, that's something to definitely be proud of. I mean, like I said, we've only known each other. We're coming up on a year soon here, the next month or so, and it's such a different connection. Like, that's why I wanted to do this podcast, and I'm doing this podcast is because of connection, and I love that we've connected over the year. Yeah, we had a forced thing. We were at the same job, so we were forced to each other every day. But we're no longer together for a job, and we're still connecting. And I think
that's, for me, that really matters a lot to me, right? That was something that I will count that as a success. And I'll tell you why. Because typically when I am working a job, I keep the job at the job and my personal life as personal life. Mm-hmm. I'm not really like it. You wouldn't know because you didn't see it, but usually I'm very on the job, and I'm into it, right? I mean, and I was into it. Like, you saw me be, like, when I'm on the job, I'm on the job, right? Like, I was there, we were doing the work, I was making sure that, like, everything was handled, keeping everything organized and afloat, all that stuff.
Very much so.
I was very into that part of it. Like, that's who I am to the core. But also, being able to just connect with you guys on a personal level at the job, that was the first time that I have done that. And actually, let you guys in on my personal life and tell you what's going on. And, like, this is going on with my grandmother. This is going on with my sister-in-law. Mm-hmm. My mom is, handling this. So, like, letting you guys in on the personal life, normally I would not do that. Normally I would just come to work and I would get work done. And then once we're done and they say that's a wrap for the day, I'm like, all right, you guys, thank you so much for a beautiful day. I'll see you tomorrow. Yep. And like that would be the end of it. Right. But here I was like, oh my gosh, can't wait to see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night, sleep well, blah blah blah.
Right.
And it was so different. And that I did count it as a success for me because that was one of my goals for myself was to if I was brought to good people, to treat them as good people and to love on them genuinely and authentically. Everybody's not out to get you because, working in this industry, there are some people that are just very much so.
You got to have a filter.
You definitely still have to have a filter. At work, the way I talked to you outside of work was very different from the way we spoke with each other at work.
Right.
And we made note of that before and we laughed about it. But yeah, it was that was I think that would be a success for me, being able to walk away from a job and have new friends. Mm-hmm. Is very meaningful, is very impactful. I still keep in touch with some of the other people that we worked with. Mm-hmm. And it's not just like hey, just want to check and see how you're doing. It's like, hey, how did this go in your life? Like last time we talked, you mentioned this, blah blah blah. Like, how is this going? How did it happen? How's your girlfriend? How's your boyfriend? How's this? How's mom? How's dad?
And that's that genuine, connection and care. Like, I mean, every time I talk to you, there were days I come in and I'd be just like, okay, how you doing? Okay, good, great. I heard your answer, but I couldn't tell you what you said. But most of the time it wasn't like that. It was like, hey, I'm specifically asking about this, this, and this. I'm praying for you for this. A month ago you said this. Did that ever work out? Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. It's that actual, like, that active listening. It's that actual true care. So Yeah, I appreciate it. It was definitely definitely felt reciprocated as well. So, and I look forward to us keeping in touch. I
Yes.
definitely want to thank you so much for your time because we could go forever.
Yes.
And I know you have some big week coming up and everything. So I do want to absolutely sincerely direct to the camera lens. Thank you, Corey, for your valuable time. And everyone, please, 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 I will put it in the show notes. We will do all the promotion that we can. We're gonna put this out. You should be listening to this right now, and it should be August 1st, so that you have the whole month. You have 26 days from that to get your tickets, find the information, everything that I'll post. But August 27th, the Mental Health Summit with Corey Sams and crew. Since I don't know anybody else, I'm just
Yes.
gonna, and crew. But check the Mental Health Summit, YouTube, Instagram, as Corey also says, all the things. August 27th, August 27th, August 27th. Corey Sams, I love you, man. I miss you. We need to get together sometime soon, physically,
Yes.
to chat and do some more catch up. So
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. You couldn't see it. I was over here on my end. I was pumping my fist every time that you were talking the whole time. I was like, this is just, it's amazing. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you for even thinking of me. I told you that before we first reached out, but still, I want to let it be known. Like, thank you for thinking of me. It means the
absolutely.
world. And I too love you, and I can't wait to see you and catch up and do everything
And we
that
will
we do
have
in
you
lab.
back. We will talk entertainment. We will talk Atlanta. We will talk all the other things. But I think it was definitely
Yes.
important to talk about mental health. And yes, so thank you for your time. Everybody out there, again, August 27th, YouTube, Instagram, the Mental Health Summit. And please take care of yourselves, take care of each other. I will see you and you will hear me next time. Corey, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.